Hello, this is Hank.
Hey, Hank.
Hi, Hank.
Hey,
Eating?
good evening.
Everybody survived the storm all right?
Pretty brief.
Went by very fast.
We
Yeah,
still have power.
Yeah.
it was one less plant that the water.
Yeah, right.
I got, and my wife's away, so I got some assignments of what had to be done, so we just do a rain dance, although you probably can't make that reference anymore anyway. We were
I'm
prayed
glad you
prayed-
didn't do that then.
for rain. Prayed for.
Dave, have you figured out who's going to send the invite out to the Zoom meetings in your absence now? Is that,
Well, yeah, well, we're gonna have to figure that out, but that's one thing we'll talk about. So I had a meeting. Well, I'll wait. We can talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a big part of tonight's meeting. So let's see here. How are we doing on time? We should 7:03. One more minute. All right, well, I think we're in good enough shape to start. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the June meeting of the Coastal Resiliency Commission. And the first thing on the agenda is to review and approve the May 12, 2021 minutes. I hope you had a chance to review them. Is there any updates or discussion, updates that we need to
Yeah,
make to
there
them?
is one change to the minutes. Fred Moore was still listed as a commission member, not in attendance to that meeting, but he actually had resigned from the commission just prior to that. So his
Okay.
name should be, and I think Marlene already knows this, so his name should be taken out just to reflect that.
Okay.
How about
great.
Tony Duena? He's not here either anymore, right?
Is he,
Yeah.
his name? I didn't notice.
Is his name on it?
Yeah, well, so in fairness to Marlene, we, meaning the town, doesn't do a good job of notifying her of the changes to folks. So it's possible, I didn't notice his name, but it's possible he's on there too.
All right. Well, if he is, then we'll make that change. Anything else? Okay.
I was missing at the last meeting, so I can't vote, I don't think, right?
Yeah, that's fine. All right. And so somebody want to make a motion for the approving the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Second. Okay. So any further discussion on the minutes from last month? Okay. And the approval, the voting is pending Fred Moore's update being taken out, and also Tony's confirming if he was there to be also taken out. All those in favor? raise your hand or say something. Okay, thank you. And those opposed or abstaining? Okay. So thank you. That's minutes are approved. Okay. First item is the update on the status of the floodplain ordinance. My understanding is I'm not aware of any changes since we met last, really, or just at least in the last week or two. And I know the Board of Selectmen is continuing to research and do whatever they need to do to get closer to coming back to us and either asking additional questions or sourcing answers from whatever sources they have available to them, or just themselves, amongst themselves or individually, just determining where they want to go from here. Dave, have you heard anything from the Board of Selectmen?
So I had just observed the selectmen meeting the other day, but maybe Al is on, so maybe Al could speak to it.
Hank, I think you have it just right. A subgroup of the Board of Selectmen has been looking at the matter and has been in touch with town attorney, trying to understand some of the many regulatory requirements here. So at this point, there is not another conversation yet or another draft yet, but I'm sure we will be back to this commission before too long with whatever thoughts we have about how to move forward on this.
Yep.
So I would leave it on your agenda respectfully, and perhaps by next month there'll be something to sink our teeth into.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the floodplain? And we will keep it on the agenda for next month also. Thanks. Anything else on the floodplain? Anybody have any questions or updates? Okay. If there's nothing else, then let's talk about the master plan and the work and timelines and how we get what the next steps are. I know that one of the things that came up was the availability of the consultant that we had in mind. And Dave, is there any update on that?
No, but Graham and I just spoke briefly about it today, and we did discuss that Dave Murphy had communicated to us that, he's pushed out till probably around August timeframe. And so, obviously that'll be beyond my tenure with the town. So I think maybe if we could have Graham circle back with him to try to figure out a more definitive date of when he might be available to assist us. I think we should anticipate no sooner than August. I think that would be a good way forward for that communication. And then I also think we should just have a generic dialogue about revisiting the scope. And I say that because we did have potentially a community engagement piece that we thought we'd push off a little longer just to kind of do some nuts and bolts revisions. But in light of the participation in the floodplain ordinance discussion, we may want to do that community engagement piece a little bit sooner. So if that was the case, I think the scope would have to be revised and reworked.
So is this, so relative to the scope, I know it would be up to us as to determine the scope, but is that something we would want to keep relatively open and get Dave Murphy's input, or is that something you would suggest we just come up with on our own?
I think my suggestion would be that you keep it open for now and maybe invite Dave back to a meeting to kind of discuss with him, what he could assist us with and have. I know we had a small subgroup talk to him initially, but I think maybe having him attend a future meeting might be. Please, anybody else, this is just, that's my thought, but I think it would be helpful to have him come to a meeting.
Yeah, I think the other issue is the cap on procurement. I think our scope was like a 10 grand, which I think is the town's cap. So if we want to do more, we'd have to deal with that. And officially, I think the money's there. We just have to go through a process potentially if we did do that.
Yeah, that's correct. The 10,000 basically lets you out of having to go out to RFP. But there are some planning funds that the first select woman has some authority over, and she had, been open to the idea of using some of that funding for the coastal resilience master plan. So I don't imagine that's changed at all. So if you guys do have a conversation with Dave Murphy and you think, well, maybe you really want to tackle a little bit more of a robust effort, I think there is funding available to do that.
Okay,
Okay,
so
good.
like 2025, we'd have to go back to public finance and ask for a distribution, or how discretionary would that be? Or we just have to do an RFP and at least get 3 firms.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. I mean, I think if you can get 3 firms in an RFP or do an RFP, and if you get 1 response, that's okay, but
Right.
it just has to be
Yeah.
an open process.
Okay, I think Joe's raising his hand.
Yeah, can we just go ahead and schedule this Murphy for the August meeting? So it's on the agenda, so he knows and we know.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him and see his availability for our August meeting. What's the date on the August meeting? Does anyone have a calendar in front of them?
I'm looking right now.
We're working on that.
2 months.
I have it as the 11th, August 11th.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 months from today plus a couple. Okay.
Dave, when are you leaving?
So my last official day will be July 2nd.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see if we can't talk to him on August 11th, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, Hank,
Yeah,
yeah, so, one of the things that we had looked at, and because we postponed this, we have time to think about it in August, I kind of pushed them to have some of their focus on the plan for the town, look at also, so much of it was focused on tidal wetlands and tidal issues, but also take a look at the inland wetlands, sort of the boundaries between tidal wetlands and inland wetlands in a couple of places. And they were willing to do that. And if I have this right, Graham and Dave can correct me, it was kind of swapping out that piece they prepare some kind of a storybook to use with a community and explaining the plan. So it kind of was a swap. Do I have that right, David? They were going to swap out the storybook.
That's correct.
So one of the things that I think we'll think about before then, I think, having a good storybook or having a good plan, as we do have on the website, the real issue for us and really for the communications group, which is me and some others, but then to come back to this whole group, how are we going to get going on getting information out to the community, whether it's through the existing plan or whether we need the storybook or not. But we really need to sort of get going on that. And certainly with COVID, we have not been able to do that at all. But I think we're now coming to the point where we'd be looking to get out to the community, not in July and August, let the community enjoy itself, but be ready to go to neighborhood groups, other groups, town, other places, and just talk about the coastal resiliency plan, the one that we have in place, the one that's being updated. And that's my thought anyway. I'm not suggesting that you guys consider this now, but that the communications group will come back to you and say, here's where we want to go in September. And we could decide, do we need the storybook or do we just need the plan? But none of it's any good unless you really go out and use it.
We're also
right.
talking about hiring an environmental consultant or an environmental position in the town to help wetlands and things like that. I don't know if we should wait to see how that goes.
What's the time? What would be the timing on, this is just sort of the generic question. If
Yeah,
the town goes out and hires somebody, what's the normal time for that?
Well, I guess I'll answer that question a little bit more elaborately. So they've already put out the town planner position for hire. So that typically, that type of position's posted for about a month. And then you go through the interview process and then you go to a hire and someone gives notice. So, you figure about 3 months for that to happen. So you're looking late August, early September before the planner is here. And then, the decision was made to let the new planner actually hire the environmental planner that would work for them, which to me makes a lot of sense. The question is the planner going to want to do that right away? Or are they going to want to work in the job for a few months and just make sure that the scope of the position is what they feel they need before they go out to post that job? So, I would say that's probably at a minimum 6 months from now that the environmental planner would be here.
Okay.
And it could be longer, depending on, like I said, depending on the new hires' interest in moving forward with the position as defined now.
So Rob's point, I think, is a good one, is that even if the environmental planner isn't here, and the planner is here, it would be good to have them, even if it's early on, in place when Murphy came to talk. And that won't be in August, will it?
It's doubtful that would be in August. I would think September is a realistic possibility. I think.
And I just think that, we're gonna, there'll be nobody steering this boat without you or the next town planner there. So we can try and steer it, but it'll be.
Yeah, and the whole bridge between our commission and the town is, we're going to be adrift for a bit with because Dave's really been the conduit between that, and so we're going to we'll make the best of it, obviously, as we can, but we'll be at a little bit of a disadvantage, and particularly in light of we're going to have a period there where we're not going to have Dave and we're not going to have the new planner. So we're going to have to just get through that and work through that. I agree with you that we should talk to Dave Murphy with the new planner, because I don't think we should be in a place where we misrepresent that planner's thinking, even initial thinking, or even whatever their perspective on the task and what we should be considering or not considering, and particularly if he or she doesn't have a relationship with Mr. Murphy, then at least it would be appropriate that they would strike up some sort of relationship, at least initially, potentially with that meeting and with this group. So I'm getting the sense that this is a little bit, not for long, I hope, a little bit of a wait and see where we are. Unless I'm misrepresenting it and just don't understand, and you guys can correct me.
So I don't think I was just going to say, I don't think you're misrepresenting it, but I do think that, there's a reason that the committee was established, and it's not, just the town staff person driving the project. So I think you guys, if you feel comfortable, should consider, moving forward, because it is a committee project. It's not a town project.
Right. No, I get it. And I may have overstated where we are, but I think we're going to keep doing that independent of this. It's just we're not going to be in the position of strength that you've allowed us to be in, Dave. How's that?
I think that sounds fair. Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments. I just, and I wish I could give you a little bit more assurance on the timeline than I can, but I do know the town did move pretty quickly to post the job. Now I'm not going to take that as an insult. I'm going to assume that.
No, it's all it means is it's a vital position, and they can't live without you.
Yeah.
It'll take a while to fill it for sure.
Yeah, but I would say that I think a September of this meeting, I think you could have some expectation that the new planner would possibly be here.
Okay.
Is it worth establishing sort of a project timeline for all of this? That's movable if certain things don't happen, but just setting all the elements in line that say this has to happen before this, before this, before that, with some sort of time frame. Otherwise, you could end up being just a little bit adrift.
Exactly. And I think we should have this meeting with Mr. Murphy to get an idea of whether or not, how much more funding we would need to get to where we're talking about. And the other question I have for Al, when are we going to meet in person, Al? Do you have any direction from our first select person that when we're going to start having public meetings again?
Let me answer that now. If you can chime in if you've heard differently, but I had a meeting today about it with Peggy and the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we arrived at the decision that the boards and commissions would remain kind of remote through July. And then starting in August, there'd either be an option to return to full in person for a board like this, or you would have an option to remain remote if that's what the board chose to do. The boards that have public hearings where the public actually provides testimony, they're going to start going hybrid in August, most likely, where the board will meet in person and whoever wants to, but will also allow for Zoom participation. So I would suggest if this board wants to meet in person, you could anticipate being able to do so in August.
Okay. So, okay, that's, I mean, I'm inclined to want to get back in person as best we can, and those that are able, as soon as we can. And if August is that time, then that's what we should have in our plans, in my opinion. So, okay, so we know where we are. You know, we have some sense of the timeline that we can expect. The 6 months, I think, is not it's a reasonable thing to do. And we should be in contact and have conversation with Dave Murphy. Not necessarily, I don't know if we need to, I guess we could meet with him in August. If we don't have the planner, but also just recognize that it's an ongoing conversation. It's not the first time, and that it would just be a continuance of the discussions we've had previously. So we'll have some continuity there. And let me see, what else did we have? Beyond that, Dave, what are the things in your absence? What are the things which would we want to consider the commission should be thinking about or doing differently, or recognizing that we need to do more, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I'd say, and this is not just for this commission, but so I had 11 boards and commissions that I was a direct staff liaison to. And on several of those boards and commissions, I think that they would benefit from having some more frequent communication with other town staff. So like, for instance, this group, I think, would benefit from having more frequent conversations with the floodplain administrator. And then right now that's Johnny Anako. I think maybe that'll stay the same, but if it changes, I think that this board should be, probably communicate more closely with the town engineer and the, floodplain administrator, because I think that's a really important role. And so the same goes with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. The Director of Public Works, who actually executes a lot of these projects, really needs to be, they don't necessarily need to attend every meeting, but they should be more involved. So I would suggest that you establish those relationships with the other town staff that you think you might interface with. So that way there is a point of contact beyond just the town planner. That would be my suggestion. And when we envisioned this group initially, actually, there were others that were thought about as being directly involved. And just due to, I don't know exactly why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. So you got me.
So we, Dave, any others? I mean, floodplain administrator is one. Who else would there be we would want to talk to?
Well, I think one thing we talk about is a lot about the beaches and the surf club. So I think the beach and rec director, who's also going to change. So, Scott Erskine's the current director until June 30th, and then Austin Hall is taking over that department. And so,
so you're giving me news that I didn't get on one of my daily news feeds. That's pretty. I must have got blocked by national news.
Yeah. So the Austin Hall is currently the senior services director. He actually used to work in Beach and Rec years ago, but he's going to be working and be in charge of the combined department. So he'll be in charge of both senior services and Beach and Rec. And so and Scott, I believe, is going to be involved for either another 6 months or another year in some capital projects. But I think, those two guys and then Austin over the longer term would be important to keep in contact with because they control, those facilities that are right along the shoreline. So,
And certainly capital projects. Good point. Thanks.
No, that's a good suggestion. I think that's great. We should, now that we've got our feet under us, we should sort of expand our level of contact within the town and the staff. So that's good. Thanks. Thanks for that. Any other comments on that whole concept of using more than, not using, but contacting and, getting advice from others other than just Dave? I think it would round out and help the commission in our thinking.
Yeah,
So
we
that's
might
good.
have to invite them to attend. I mean, I don't know.
Which, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because on the WPCA, we have Trent comes to our meetings, and kind of updates us briefly, but that's when we're in person. So
Yep.
you guys only meet 4 times a year, WPCA.
yeah, it's pretty easy. Compared to you, he's got an easy task. Yeah.
Yeah,
And usually, we let him go first and get him out of there in like 20 minutes. So
yeah, he's not on
these are
it.
tips that you could take advantage of, Dave. Now it's a little late.
Yeah, it's a little late. I should have said that to the Planning and Zoning Commission when I was on till midnight last week.
Hey, who was bringing on the water? Who do you bring in for the water pollution control? Who do you bring in for that?
The town health director.
Oh, right.
He's our liaison. Our staff, next to town staff.
It's in a way, David, it's us almost reminding all those folks that we do have a plan already and coming to us just to discuss the plan a little bit and how it affects what they do.
Right. And then I guess the other thing you're going to have to, at some point, and we're not quite there yet, but at some point you're going to have to engage with, the capital improvement plan committee, because eventually there's going to be projects that you're going to want to try to get funded. And so, that could be through your Board of Selectmen liaison, or it could be through, other people. But I think that process at some point want to get engaged in that process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's great advice. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, okay. The committee reports, I'll speak for policy. We do not have any update other than awaiting the floodplain ordinance feedback and questions or decisions. Graham, for the technical, anything?
Not really. We've been kind of on a pause.
Right. Okay. And Walter, you mentioned communication already. Do you have anything further?
Yeah, and I think, I'd hope to look at something on that. Since we've had our last meeting, I did not. I was going to get together with Marilyn and Greg, and I think Shannon Lewis. She's on this committee. I don't think she's on the Zoom tonight. But what I was thinking about, really, for you guys to think about is, when we started on this, we were ready to think we had to do communications, and then COVID kind of stopped where you'd go out. And I was thinking, we weren't, and Marilyn thought this way, Mary Barnaby thought this way, we weren't quite ready to go out because we didn't know what messages we wanted to convey to people. I mean, you could just go out and yell sea level rise and have a motto, run for the hills, but that didn't seem deep enough to really connect to some kind of action. Having gone through this and thought about the floodplain ordinance and how we didn't really look to build support for something before it went live, maybe because we didn't know it was going to be that controversial, or we should have known. But I'm looking now at something that, think of this in 2 ways. We don't really have a plan for what we do with wetlands. Both Rob and Graham have talked about some of the difficulties of having something that didn't work right or might have a lot of opposition. But we could be looking at a plan to reach out to people who live near wetlands and tell them we're looking at some kind of rule. The technical group will have to come up with it, but some kind of rule which will give some additional protection for the tidal wetlands and the inland wetlands. Again, this is me just throwing out a straw man. I can write this up and send it out, but I'd be talking with the communications group. How would we go out and talk to folks and reach out to folks who live near wetlands, are concerned about it, and see if they'd be willing to support some kind of change, which would impact their property, but maybe not so negatively. So again, we wouldn't be going out with this until, something we'd start in September, because think about just reaching out to folks near wetlands and trying to educate them as to how important the wetlands are and what we could be thinking about to protect them. Not necessarily a rule that, as Graham has pointed out, that they're fighting like crazy about an old lime or lime, but some kind of rule that the technical group would work on. And then the technical group would work on it. Then before we took it to and this would be the zoning board, not the board of selectmen. Before we took it there, we would have gotten people who would be willing to come out and support it and say, this is a really good thing. And then maybe people say, I don't like it, but we have some people that were in favor of it as well. And we didn't have that before with the floodplain ordinance, and for good reason. But I think that's the way I would think about, there may be other projects that would fit in this, but I'm looking at, we can go out and talk about sea level rise and the importance of wetlands and some kind of rule that we'll need people to support, or things they can do with their own property, plantings or whatever. It may be a much softer lift or an easier lift, but it's that kind of focus. And I don't ask you guys to think of, making decisions tonight. I just think this is what I'm thinking, and I'll try and get some support from the communications folks and then come back to you guys with some ideas about where we take this.
Okay, great. Thanks. See, what else do we have? We had, okay. I think that's, okay, we're on to general discussion. Oh, well, the first thing.
One more, Hank.
Yep, go ahead.
Once I've been through this, I realized how many people, how many agencies or boards that Dave has to go to their board meeting, how many really think about these issues as well. There's a conservation commission, there's the inland wetlands agency, there is the floodplain group, there's only one person on that, and there's water pollution, whatever, the one that Graham just mentioned. I think that the communications group should reach out to those guys, those folks as well, the chairs of those committees, and talk about how they think about this. As we go forward with something, we'd want them all in to line up if we go to the zoning commission for a new regulation. And we haven't done.
And also we would want their feedback on, before we even get there.
Yeah, and we might ask them, do they want to come to our meetings, or maybe they're busy enough, but we want to at least fill them in. So I don't mind taking that on too, Hank, if that's okay with you, just reaching out to these folks.
No, that would be great.
So it's both the public generally, but also these other, because it's a complicated. We keep adding commissions. We don't reduce commission in this town or other places as well.
All right. Well, thanks. General discussion. So one thing I wanted to bring up. Dave, did I misread, or was there something I thought Lauren sent out about various committees or commissions or boards were not going to meet in July?
Yeah, I think the town
misunderstand.
Yeah, it's not a requirement, but the town is trying to figure out this transition back to kind of in-person meetings. So back a couple weeks ago, there was a thought that we were going to be required to hold hybrid meetings. And so, commissions were being encouraged to kind of maybe take July off so that we can work through those issues. The legislature just passed a bill, I guess, I don't know if they passed it yesterday or it was communicated to us yesterday, that you can continue remote if you choose to. But I do have a few boards that have indicated they're going to take July off, just to kind of, one, try to enjoy themselves as things open up and COVID's not so bad. And two, just to let the town try to catch up on getting people back to in-person meetings. But it's totally your choice how you want to operate.
Right. I thought I saw something. So anyway, the general question, what are your thoughts all about skipping the July meeting and taking, a summer break?
Based on everything, I think it would be a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone that doesn't think it's a good idea? Maybe missing an issue that I'm not aware of? Because I'm inclined to skip July.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Joe's raising his hand.
Oh,
Yeah.
Joe, yeah, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Is there any chance Peggy will have something for us before August?
As far as
Floodplain.
Yeah,
floodplain,
floodplain. Yeah.
uh,
My best guess would be no.
Yeah. And she's recused herself anyway. So it would be,
right, but whoever's left.
right.
So the general thinking is that we won't hear anything prior to, and I tend to, for whatever reason, I tend to agree with Al, thinking I'm not expecting them, in July, frankly. And I have no insight. That's my feeling.
That's fine, Hank, and you could call a meeting if we had.
Yeah, if something were to happen, we could always call
You could call
in a meeting, and we could get together and resolve or answer whatever the questions or issues
Yep.
are. Okay, so we will jump over July and reconvene in August. I don't have any other thing in general to say, other than I would like to take the opportunity to thank Dave for the yeoman service he's done for our commission in getting us up and running and keeping us going. And he's been, I've had the good pleasure of working with Dave, not only here, but in prior lives and other boards. And he's a fantastic asset to the town, and he's done a great job. So I appreciate him immensely. So, and he'll be missed.
I'm toasting. This is water.
Oh,
It's water, but still, here's to you, Dave.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I'll say,
thanks a
it's-
lot.
Thanks for your work, Dave.
thank you. I will say it's been a pleasure working with everybody here, and I am still going to be a town resident, so I'm not going to jump on any boards and commissions as a volunteer right away, but I will be here, and I'll send everybody my new contact information prior to my departure. And I'm going to tell you, and I mean it, to please feel free to reach out anytime, because I'm going to feel free the other way. So if I have an idea or see something I'd like to share, I'm going to reach out to you. So please feel free to do the same to me. And then hopefully I see you around.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
So much.
Any other comments
Hank,
or issues or whatever?
yeah, Hank, one thing that was mentioned, David mentioned it early in the legislative session, was some look at the state enacting a law which would set up either authorize or call for or suggest they combine flood and erosion and coastal and resiliency commission in one. Did that legislation go anywhere?
I haven't checked, but I actually have I was supposed to have it this week, but I have a meeting next week with Joe McDougald and a couple fellows from Circa to talk about stormwater authorities, which is kind of a related piece of legislation. Yeah. So I will probably learn more during that discussion, and I can communicate it back out.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be a question of whether, if due to legislation, the town would feel that the selectmen would have to reconstitute or rename or recharge coastal resiliency with some combined thing.
Right. Yeah, and I'll have to check back into that. But yeah, the idea would be if there's the Flood and Erosion Control Board under the legislation takes on a resiliency function. So it's a Flood and Erosion and Resiliency Board.
Yeah. So I'm not suggesting we're going to get that resolved in. If there's that kind of legislation, usually it has some delayed effective date. It's not July 1, it's October 1. And if we get to meet in August, we'd be able to discuss it then.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for tonight?
No.
Can we decide tonight whether we're going to meet August 11th in person or Zoom?
I'd like to do it in person, and I guess come August it would be a hybrid model where you could Zoom in also.
I think for this board, it would be just in person. And so if someone wants to attend the meeting, they'd come in person, because the hybrid, you don't want to worry about that headache.
Yeah, I don't, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was a requirement.
Only if we're doing a public hearing, it's a.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If it's just us without a public hearing, then yeah, I'd
you'll
like
just
to,
be in person.
I would like to do it in person unless there's a number of people that are unwilling or unable to do it in person. And if there are, please let me know.
I'd like to make a motion that.
Not
August
now, by
meeting
the
be
way.
in person.
I think I'll second it, and all those in favor. I don't know that we have to vote for it. I don't think we do. I think it's something that is our choice. And unless there's somebody, and I've already said it, unless there's somebody that's against it or can't do it, and you don't need to say it now, but if there are issues that you have, you can, just tell me. I don't even need to know what they are. Just tell me that you're unable to do it, and we'll try and make some sort of accommodations.
The only variable is Dave Murphy might be easy for him to get to a Zoom call than show up in Madison. So whether we could put him on a call, remotely.
We could put them into a call-in, facility, but it wouldn't necessarily be an official, hybrid Zoom thing.
Yeah, I think Graham, I think you're right, but the preference would be for us to see him in person. I mean, you obviously.
I'd much prefer that.
Yeah, so let me see. And if he can't make it in August for whatever reason, then, it sounds like we're up a little there. If it has to be September, it has to be September.
Yeah, then we'll go back to September.
Yeah, that's fine. But
More likely.
but I would like to have them in person if we can.
Okay, I'll see what he can do. Yeah.
Great. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I'll make a motion to finish up tonight. All those in favor? Or second?
Aye.
Anybody second?
Aye.
All those in favor? Thank you very much.